Normally when you think of chunky yarn, do you think of something a bit like this? Or how about something like this? Hi everybody, today it's all about chunky yarn. This is my kind of chunky yarn, but I'm also going to talk to you about all sorts of chunky yarn. The chunky yarn you can find online really easily now and what you can do with it. I'm just going to put this big fella down for a second and talk to you about what I started off talking about. Regular chunky yarn. You can find this everywhere online really easily, and obviously in real yarn shops. Do go and support your local yarn shops. If online, if you do a search by yarn weight and search up super chunky, it will bring up a whole list of yarns that you can choose from. This is Drops Polaris, I think. I've used it quite a bit. It's a really lovely, it's 100% wool, and I think you can probably see there it's pretty chunky stuff. I would use, I think, a 10mm hook with that yarn for project making. I've just made some slippers with it for my new book, and I've made a poncho. It's great for scarves, that kind of thing, anything where you want to be warm really, it's absolutely perfect for. And speaking about my new book, which is out in May, it's called Supersize Crochet. Now, obviously I was quite happy to use these readily available chunky yarns, but I needed something a bit more than that. If you've been following me on Instagram and if you've been reading my blog, you'll know that I also really like good old t-shirt yarn. It's really easy to get hold of now, and I've got a fabulous supplier. I'll link to the shop in my show notes so you know where, well, there's all sorts of places you can buy it now actually. It's brilliant stuff. It's pretty cheap really. I think it's made from the selvages from the fabric industry, so it's sort of the edges of t-shirt making, and you can see it's made up of probably about inch thick strips, and then when it's pulled tight it creates a yarn. You can use this for, gosh, so many kind of projects. I don't know that I'd necessarily wear something that I'd crocheted out of it, but I've made bowls, baskets. It's great for those kind of homewares, rugs. It's really hard wearing. So that's a really great yarn to buy. And another one I've been using is good old Stylecraft. As you know, I'm one of their blog stars, but I do love a bit of Stylecraft. This is super chunky, special XL. This is one of the lovely plum shade. And in fact, one of the projects in my new book, Supersize Crochet, up very soon, uses this yarn, but actually uses it 2 strands together. It's already pretty chunky, but I was really looking for really chunky yarn. So that's a really good way of creating your own chunky yarn. Just crochet with 2 strands together. Perfect. I made a bag in this yarn. It's really brilliant. It's acrylic. It's good old Stylecraft. We know where we are with them. But I wanted something a bit more, and I found a fantastic supplier. She is called Woolly Mahusif, and I was doing a search on the internet. I was trying to find the really giant yarns that I'd seen and the projects that I'd seen made from it. My problem was that to buy merino yarn, it was getting more and more expensive. And whilst I have used merino yarn in the book for some of the projects, I'm very aware that not everybody will want to make a lovely pet bed for their cat or dog that then is going to cost them several £100s. So I stumbled upon Woolly Mahusif and her fabulous shop, and she sent me, and she's been brilliant, she's supplied me with a load of my super chunky yarns that I'm using in my book. She sent me this stuff to try. It's absolutely amazing. You can see it's a giant ball of yarn. It's absolutely enormous. What's great about this is it's acrylic, which makes it a far more affordable and really a far more user-friendly yarn to be using for some of the really big projects in the book. So if I hold it out there, you can see it is ginormous stuff. I used it for, I did make a pet bed from it, from the book. You could use it for all sorts of home projects. I've seen blankets crocheted and knitted in this. And there's gosh, you could use any for any of the large projects. It does pill slightly. You can see because of the way the yarn's made, it's not twisted, it's not plied. So you do kind of get this splitting, but so long as you're careful when you work, it didn't cause me a problem. It will pill a bit as well. So I found when I was working on projects, I worked with a plastic sheet on my lap, and it just meant I could turn the projects without it then rubbing. But it was fantastic stuff to work with. I used, I think, a 40mm hook for one of my projects, and I think probably a 25 would be about right, she says, picking up a 25mm hook. So that's a hook I bought online. I've actually got a different one that I think I got from William Mahusa. She stocks all your big hooks and needles too. But yeah, I've used a 25 with it as well. It is major stuff. But that's a fantastic yarn. Just throw that on the floor. The merino, I'll have to show you. This is the navy merino, and if you look on her website, you can see all the different yarns she's got available. This is absolutely beautiful. So it's similar looking. It's probably a little bit smoother than the mammoth. That other yarn is called mammoth, but it's beautifully soft and fluffy and extremely light, as you would expect with it being made from merino wool. And again, it's not plied at all, so you can see it does kind of split, so you've got to work with it really carefully, but it's beautiful. And if you're making a luxury item with this, whether it be a little blanket or gosh, anything you might want next to your skin, it'd be lovely made into a kind of big loose cowl or scarf. This stuff would be really beautiful and would work very well in it too. I think I used a 25. I made what did I make? A little cushion out of the merino, but it's lovely. It's really beautiful stuff. And again, you can see, you know, it's really extreme yarn. Fantastic. Another yarn that Andrea has sent me is, excuse me, is this stuff, which is called Wiggly. And again, it's an acrylic. It's amazingly soft. I love this sky blue colour. I don't know if she still has this, but again, if I bring, actually it's probably easier if I do that. Another acrylic. Again, it's just lightly twisted, brilliant to work with. You'd probably use a slightly smaller hook with that, maybe just a 20mm for that. One of those perhaps. Really fantastic. Again, acrylic, so it's going to be a lot cheaper than the merinos. But my most recent box of yarns from Andrea contained, and I'm going to rustle a bit now as I delve into my bag, this. I'm going to try and pull out a great big skein, and I've got several to try and I can't wait, of, now this is called Squiggly. I love the names. Squiggly yarn. Again, it's an acrylic. So if I bring that one up, and I've also got, sorry about the rustling, should have been more organised and got them out, in this amazing orange. I'm hoping the light's not skewing them too much. It's really sunny here today. Just fabulous. So again, they're lightly twisted. I don't think these will, in fact I've used them, I'll show you what I made in a minute. It's just lightly twisted enough to not really split, and it's beautifully soft. It really is amazing. So what I made, so Andrea sent me some to try, which is fantastic, and I wasn't really sure. You get about 300 grams I think in one of these, and they're really reasonable. I think I was looking this morning on the website, and I think it's about £12, something like that. So for some really extreme yarn, I think that's a really good price. So I was using the Squiggly, and I didn't quite know what to make, but I settled on the end for a little, I think I'm going to call it a ruglet. I wanted to see how much yarn I could get into a project, if that makes sense. And I thought the easiest thing to do was to make something in the round, so I could just keep going until I ran out of yarn. This actually used one of these big skeins, about 300 grams, and I did have a little ball left over, only a tiny little ball, which one of my children has run off with, so I haven't got it to hand, but I didn't have very much left from that project. So I would use this, what I wanted to make was something that could actually go on the wall, maybe held up with pins or something like that. I just thought they'd look really effective. Maybe 3 on the wall. My husband will love it, don't tell him. But if not, I thought they'd actually be really sweet little rugs. In fact, my daughter's already got her eyes on this. She was saying how soft it was. And I thought if you had, again, 2 or 3 or 4, you could join them up easily, or you could just have them next to each other. But I think they're really sweet little rugs. So that's what I made with mine. I'm going to put the free pattern for this. It was just a little, I just had a little play with making a circle really. So I'll put the free pattern on my blog with all the show notes and all the other guff, so you can find all the links to everything. But I'm really pleased with it. It was beautiful to work with. I'll just bring it in a little bit closer so you can have a little look at the stitches. It hasn't split at all. It was really easy to work with. I used a 20mm hook with that, and I think it's worked out really, really nicely. The colour's beautiful. I've had trouble trying to photograph this actually on Instagram. It's come out a really pale sort of pink, so I don't know quite what the sunlight will be doing to the colours today, but it's called Peach online. It's kind of a peachy corally colour, I'd call it, but it's really, really pretty. So that's using the squiggly yarn. I'm probably going to make another one in this lovely cream. I might make one in the orange as well. I think it's a fantastic colour. It's just really bright. She's got loads of other colours too. So do make sure you have a look at those. She sent me more. I'm so lucky to try. And these are, oh look, that's what I had left after making my ruglet. That's the yarn that I had left. So not very much at all. Apologies to the children. You didn't run off with it. It's there. That's so a really tiny amount. The other yarn she sent me to look at, and that's her lovely logo there on the front as well. This yarn is slightly different. This is 30% wool, 70% acrylic, and she's got some fantastic colours. I've got this beautiful purple, really, really lovely. You don't get as much here. That's 200 grams. I think the other ones were about 300, and about 20 meters. So not very much. But you're not going to need much with this yarn. Again, you can see how kind of big and fat and lush it is. I, again, would reckon on probably a 20mm. Did I say 25 for the other one? That's a 20. I used a 20 for the ruglet. Maybe a 20 or a 25. You'd have to try it. Depends on the drape you're trying to create. Because it's got wool in it, I really want to make something that I can wear. I promise not another shawl. It'd be far too chunky for a shawl. But maybe a really nice soft cowl or something like that might be really, really nice. So, oh, there it is, it's unravelling. So really fantastic stuff there to try, and I can't wait to get my big hooks out and have a play with that. So what have I been up to this week? I'm just looking at my table of things to show you and thinking what to show you first. Well, as we're talking about chunky yarn today, I'm just going to show you a little bit of my knitting, because anyone that follows me will know that I started a cardigan last week with the help of my mum, thank goodness, and I'm doing all right. I'm quite pleased. I'm already on one of the front pieces, and I'm learning how to do a little slip stitch edge, which is okay. I've got some really loose stitches which I might just have to catch, I think, with a little bit of thread, just to stitch them securely so nothing comes undone. But I did actually finish the back and cast off. I remembered how to do that. I'm so pleased with myself, and a bit of shaping as well. And the only major disaster I had, I lost a stitch at one stage and I couldn't see any gaps, so I guessed it must have been down the edge. And talking to my mum and showing my mum, we think it's where I added in new yarn and then just kind of missed it on the edge, but it won't show. We've added another stitch in and it all looks fine. And the only major gaff I've got is I did something weird. I dropped a stitch and then tried to put it back on and kind of probably missed it or something. It's not made a hole, but it's kind of just made a bit of a loop there. But other than that, I'm quite excited to get on with knitting. I'm enjoying it, and that's hopefully quite soon will be a cardigan for me. So that's knitting, which is very unusual for me. In other news, I have been working with the, sorry, clanging my hooks, the glow in the dark yarn. I don't know if you remember, I showed you last week, if you watched last week's, and incidentally all the yarn in my basket is what I was talking about in last week's little video. So if you want to find out what these beautiful things are, then go and see the last video. But I did talk about this amazing glow in the dark yarn from Unique Yarns Company, and I started making little motifs. I started making some little stars actually. I'll finish making them and I will show you the project and what I'm planning on doing with them in next week's video, when I've actually sewn in all the ends and done all the stuff. They work really, really well, particularly the green is amazing. It really, really does glow. So I'll show you all that next week. I'm also working at the moment on a project. I can't show you the project, it's a secret project, but can show you the yarn. Now this is Yarn and Colours. And if you're on Instagram at the moment, you'll see a lot of people are very excited by this yarn. It's available at Wool Warehouse, and I've got these little minis. They come in different sizes. You can get bigger balls as well. These are little 10 grams and they are so sweet. I've already used some of them, so they're not complete balls at the moment, but they're the most fantastic colours, and they're about 60p for a 10 gram ball. So perfect if you've got a little project or you only want a little bit of yarn. They are, I'm going to say 4-ply because I haven't got the labels saying what they are because they'll be somewhere else. I'm using a 2.5mm hook for my project with these at the moment, and they're cotton as well. They're really lovely. They've got a super twist to them, and they are just ever so slightly, I'm going to say, no, I don't know what I was going to say. They're ever so slightly something anyway, but they're really lovely. I think the sun's getting to that one, you probably can't see it. But really lovely yarn, very, very sweet, nice to work with, doesn't split at all. And it comes in, oh, that's what I was going to say, comes in 100 colours. 100 colours, it's just amazing. Brilliant, so you can use those for any sorts of projects where cotton yarns are going to be what you need to use. I'd really recommend them, they're lovely, really, really super. And another thing, I was really pleased to receive back in the post, because you know, when you're a designer, you post off all your creations and often don't see them again. But I had a little parcel come last week, and it's my shawl back from Inside Crochet. So you might remember, I did show, oh, my wires are getting caught up. I was very proud, and I showed you last week that my shawl is on the front cover of Inside Crochet, and my little koala as well. And then they arrived back in the post, and I thought it would be a really lovely opportunity to show you, I don't know if you can see the colours of the shawl. So this was that amazing yarn from Billum, and it's called Billum Puck Puck, and it changes from a really lovely pale at the top to a really, oh, I don't know if you can really see that, to a really dark grey at the bottom. It's a lovely yarn. It's I blocked it to, obviously, to give it its shape, but it's going to make the most fantastic shawl for this kind of weather, I think. So I'm so pleased to get that back, can't wait to wear that. And also in the same package came my little koala, so there he is, saying hello. Again, he's in the pattern, but my daughter's already decided that he's going to live with her in her bedroom. He won't, I'll put him in my special room instead. So that's what I've been up to this week. It's always busy at Annaboo's house. I'm always designing and making, and got lots of new projects in my head, as always. Next time, I'm going to show you the glow-in-the-dark yarn and what I'm making with it. I can also show you some of the contents of that big Stylecraft bag from when I went up to see Stylecraft last month. I think I can probably show you everything. So that's some lovely new yarn to show you as well. So I hope you're having a great week, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye.
Hello, Lola, you lying in the sunshine? Is it sunny? Bye bye.